Hey, I'm Milo from Teech. Today we're going to be talking about vectors and how you add two vectors together. So in previous videos we saw that vectors were very useful concepts for things like physics. So we saw that a vector is basically defined by two things. The first is its magnitude, so the length of the vector, and the second is its direction, so the direction in which it's pointing. And so we can represent vectors basically by arrows that have a certain length and a certain direction. So if we have two different vectors, so say one horizontal vector, an arrow pointing horizontally that way, and then we have a second vector, say over here, pointing at a 45-degree angle. So to sum those two vectors together, so if I have vector A, which was the horizontal one, and vector B, which was the 45-degree angle one, and I want to know what happens if I put them together. So we basically take that first vector, take the second vector, and join the tip of the first vector to the tail of the second vector. And we can move these vectors around because we said that a vector was not defined by its position. It's simply defined by its length and its direction. So we take these two vectors, join the tip and the tail, and the resulting vector, so the sum of these two vectors, is going to be a third line that basically joins the tail of the first vector to the tip of the second. So if my vectors are here, my resulting vector is going to be that line there. And this is useful, and it's also quite intuitive. So a concrete example in the physical world would be, for instance, if I have two force vectors. So we saw that, for instance, a force vector was something that expressed the direction in which the force is being exerted and the intensity with which it's being exerted. So if I have, for example, a football that I kick upwards, when I kick it upwards, I'm going to have a force vector vertically upwards that has a certain magnitude. If I also have a lot of wind coming in from the side, this wind is going to exert a vector that's going to be horizontal, so with the direction going that way. And so if we sum those two vectors together, the vertical one and the horizontal one, we're going to have a third vector which is going to be slanting off to the side, the third force vector. And so if you think of the motion of the football, if I kick it upwards on a windy day, it's going to go slightly diagonally. And this is what the vectors tell us. So we see that intuitively it does make sense. And mathematically, this is a concept that we use all the time to represent how forces work and how other types of vectors work in space. Thanks. If you've got questions about this, don't hesitate to ask any of our teachers on Teach. Do.